that, you know, a life unexpected. Whew, okay. So I just got this phone call from my dad. He went to the emergency this morning and he'll be having surgery to get his foot cut off because of his toe. Let's backtrack. He's a diabetic. You know, he stubbed his toe maybe 2 months ago and had to get the toe removed. Mind you, he already had another toe removed on the other foot because of the diabetes. And then now, you know, a couple of months ago, he stubbed his other one and it got infected. Of course, they had to take it off, but then the healing process wasn't going so well and he's been in excruciating pain. He said he woke up to swelling and just feeling like cut it off. So he actually woke up and called me at 5:30 in the morning to tell me that he was in the emergency room with, you know, a few days packed worth of foods and snacks and stuff because he wants to get surgery and get his foot cut off. And it, you know, it made me sit back and like think and like, you know, I love my dad and, you know, he's always been present in my life. And it just made me think of the phrase, like the sins of our fathers. My dad, he's always been in my life. I always knew who my dad was, but early on years, for like the first, 20 something years of my life, he was addicted to drugs. And what they say, he was a functioning crackhead, I guess you want to call it or whatever. You know, he may not have always had a job. He was definitely a player and always had like women and stuff. So when I did see him, you know, he was taking me over to his ladies' houses and shit. And my grandmother played a major role in my life. So whenever I was over my grandmother's house, that's her son. So, you know, I would always see my dad and shit. I can't say we had like the tightest bond and like he was like, you know, the greatest stand-up dad. But honestly, he was there when it mattered, for real. And like, I was in a band in basketball in high school and shit. And my mom, she never made it to none of my games. But my dad, he came to at least one of my basketball games. And he came to a major competition we had with the band, and we actually won too. I played the cymbals and shit, and he like teased me about like them fucking cymbals for like years and years after the fact. But he showed up, and I remember that shit. Like I remember that shit, and like it mattered to me. And yeah, and it like I hold those little times, you know, dear to me. I remember when I first came out to him and shit. Like, you know, I told him I was like, I like girls. His ass, we went up to fucking Iverson Mall, and if you are from DC, Iverson Mall, it's in Maryland and shit, so it's a little spot. We went up to Iverson Mall, and he already a smooth operator, but this fool started going up to women. He seen this lady with her daughter and shit, and went up and tried to start macking on her and shit, and then to some, you know, my daughter, she like girls too and shit, and I'm like, Dad, I had to tell him like, you can't do that. All girls ain't gay. You can't just be, some people will get offended by that shit. But like, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that day. And actually, like, my dad took me to my first strip club too. Don't tell nobody. But he did. It was this local strip club that he was going to down the street from my grandmother's house. And I was on my grandma's house for the weekend and shit. We was just chilling. You know, I was smoking my weed in the hallway. He was doing this thing and he was about to go. And I'm like, shit, I'm trying to go. And we went up there and like, this shit was wild as fuck. And mind you, like, this fool, you know, he tried to like, you know, be all smooth and cause this is crew, he know everybody up there and shit. This fool go up there, I didn't know he had already played the little stripper joints for a dance for me and shit. I just know I had some ones in my pocket. They came up, they started dancing on me and shit. So I'm start making it rain on these hoes and like they pulled me on stage and all this big wild shit. I seen my father like step out the door cause he didn't want I ain't want to see none of that shit. But like, yeah, and like whole time he was like, I think we was about to go get a drink at the bar. He was like, what's up? What the ones that I gave you and shit? I'm like, I gave it to the little stripper joint. He like, daughter, I already paid her $20 to go dance. So, look, I ain't know. She got, you know, she got a little double that night and shit. But like my dad, man, it just, I always been a forgiving person, first and foremost. I've always been forgiving. And I always, I always just been reasonable and understanding when it came to my parents and why they were the way they were and shit. And I'm not gonna say at times like it didn't make me mad. Like my dad, like, you know what I'm saying? It was like certain shit, like he was cheap as shit. Like if my man gave me some money, I went up to his job to get some money from him or whatever, and we go out to eat for lunch with it or whatever, he would definitely make me pay for my meal with the money he just gave me type shit. Like the nigga was fucking penny pinching ass motherfucker, but the coolest nigga I know. And I just hope that everything goes well with this surgery. And I'm all the way in LA, he in DC and shit, and like, I am worried, but I just hope he all right. And it just made me want to just go down memory lane and, just talk about him for a second. And I know that our parents may not always show up the way that we want them to and when we need them to. But you gotta remember that they're humans too. And they're going through their own journey and they're figuring it out just like how we're figuring it out. And I didn't understand that until I got into my 30s. Like, dang, my parents was like essentially my age and already had so much already going on with their life. And I can imagine like all that in my life at this age, whoa. So I get it. And it just shows you, to take care of yourself. Just take care of yourself. And I wish, I can help him out and give him my foot if I could, with this situation. But like you always say, my mom always say, let's just cross the barrier and he's gonna push through, He's deep in his faith and he knows that everything is part of the plan, and I do too. And so, yeah, man, I guess that's it. Like, just remember everybody has their own plan and their purpose, and our parents may not be so perfect, but they're your parents. And forgiveness and understanding and reason, it goes a long way. Guess that's it for today, guys. Salud.